Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. I'm so happy that you're back here. Today we're talking about my hijab journey, how I started wearing it, what was going on during that time, and what are like the key moments I remember leading up to me actually putting it on. It has been 12 years since I put it on. I was 14 then, I'm going to be 26 this year. Let's talk about it. So what actually inspired me to put the hijab on? It feels underwhelming to say that it wasn't some major incident that happened, but it was a YouTube video. I watched this YouTube video about how none of us are promised old age. None of us are promised a long life. You could literally die anytime. And the video was about how if you die knowing that there are certain things that you should have been doing, you die knowing you should have been praying, you should have been wearing the hijab, you should have been avoiding certain things. You die knowing that. What excuse will you have in front of Allah that I knew I should have been doing this, but I didn't because I didn't feel ready or the time wasn't right? You know, what excuse are you going to give? That was the basic gist of the video, and it was basically about death. You know, it was about how it can come at any time. And so even if hijab at that time was somewhere in my head, okay, eventually down the line this is something that I know I should do and I will eventually do, that video sort of like made the timeline of my life more realistic for me, and how I might not have all those years. I might not have that, oh, later I'll do this. That later might not be written for me. I don't know. And so if I know there's something I should be doing, I should just do it now. Okay, rewind. It's not that I watched that video and it changed absolutely everything. I was already in a phase of life where, you know, I was watching these videos. I was learning more about Islam. I was trying to get closer to Allah during that time in my life. This is actually also when I started praying regularly. I was going through a period in my life that just was not the best. It was also summer vacation, and so, you know, I didn't have school at that time either. I was just at home. I was a little isolated, and there was a lot going on during that time. And one advice that my nani actually gave me that I still like hold so close to my heart is to never stop praying. To just be regular with your prayers. She just kept telling me just pray no matter what. Whether you've missed them all throughout the day and you're praying all 5 at night, that's all the advice she ever gave me. And somehow Allah allowed me to take that advice to heart, and I did. And I started praying regularly, and I really found comfort in that. Again, like this was during summer break. I was in between moving cities. There was a lot going on in my life that as a 14-year-old, I didn't know how to navigate. And around that time, I was just very isolated. I didn't talk to any of my friends. Some of it was because of the circumstances, but some of it was also me just distancing myself. I didn't feel like reaching out. I didn't feel like anybody around me was relating to the things I was going through. I didn't feel like anybody would understand. And in that, I found that no matter what, Allah understood. I spent those days just waiting for the next prayer because that's all I looked forward to. Beach mein, I would just be reading more about Islam, reading more about how Allah loves us, how He's so close to us, and how each of us have an individual relationship with Him. And that is the first time in my life I realized the presence that Allah has in my life. And that's what got me through that time. And I know it sounds really deep for a 14-year-old to be having these thoughts and to be feeling these things so deeply, but somehow I did, and He became my comfort in that time. And so, like I'm saying, I was reading more about Islam, I was watching all these videos, just that was my comfort during that time. And so one of the videos I came across was the one I talked to you about, which was about death and how we're not promised a long life. And if there's any changes that you're postponing, just make them now. Just try and strive towards them now. How I felt during that time is literally how I strive to feel to this day. The level of iman, the sweetness of iman, the closeness to Allah that I felt during that time 12 years ago is something I still, you know, I've gotten little pockets of it throughout all these years, but I haven't been able to constantly stay in that state I was in during those days. If you're in that phase, you know what I'm talking about. You know how it feels to just go throughout your day with so much tawakkul and so much taqwa, like, you know, God consciousness. That is how you feel. Like, no matter what you're doing throughout the day, you have this thought in your head that there's this one thing I really want to do for my Rabb. So many people are talking about how they're in that phase, and I speak to who's in that phase, I just tell them, please just try and like stretch out this phase as much as you can. Enjoy the sweetness of Iman that you have right now. Because as a 14-year-old, I dropped everything that I felt would not please Allah, and I dropped everything that could take me away. And of course, like as a 14-year-old, that list wasn't very long, but anything that came to my head where I felt like, okay, this is something that Allah doesn't like, I was so happy to drop it because I felt so close to Him that none of these things really felt like a sacrifice. They just felt like, okay, I'm taking one step closer to Allah. He's taking 10 towards me. And this is actually when I read this hadith as well. It is literally my favorite hadith. It is everywhere in my life. I remember it was like my phone wallpaper for so long. It is on the cover of the Ramadan journals that I make. Just knowing that if I walk towards Allah, if I take one step towards Allah, He is running towards me. I was so happy to be able to do more. And I was actively looking for ways I could do more, I could do better. And this is where the thought of, okay, putting the hijab on came to my head. This wasn't anything I was discussing with anybody. I was just having these internal dialogues with myself. I remember during that time, I was taking a flight from one city to the other. At the airport, I remember just being in my head, thinking, I wish nobody here sees me or remembers my face because I'm not wearing my hijab yet and I really want to. It sounds silly to say now, but that's the thought in my head, and that's what I mean by I was just so God conscious during that time where that's all that was going on in my head. It obviously became apparent that, okay, she's regular with her prayers now, but that is something everybody should do anyways. But hijab, I don't think anybody would have thought. Anybody that was around me, anybody I was friends with, my family, I don't think anyone could have predicted that. And so the fact that it happened is even more special because this is something that I didn't even think that I could do. And the fact that Allah let me, and He let me at such a young age make that decision and feel closer to Him in some way, and have it be at a time where I was moving cities, right? So it was easier for me during that time because I was in a completely new place with around completely new people, and I had the opportunity to start fresh. I had this one friend who reached out to me during that time, and completely unlike the phase I was going through where I wasn't really speaking to anybody, wasn't reaching out to any of my old friends, I ended up talking to her and I told her that I really want to put the hijab on and I'm debating it and I just feel scared. And so her mom told her to tell me to pray Tahajjud. I didn't know what it was. I don't think anybody told me to pray Tahajjud because, you know, us waqt to yahi hota hai ki, okay, you're praying 5 times a day, that's great. And so her mom sort of explained to me how to pray Tahajjud, but then I also did my research. Google was my best friend. I did more research, I read more about it, and I decided, okay, that night I'm going to pray Tahajjud. I spent that time just reading about Tahajjud and how it's the arrow that doesn't miss, how Allah comes down to the first heaven and Allah asks Himself if His servants need anything from Him. I was so excited. I forced myself to sleep, and then I woke up that night, I prayed Tahajjud, and I just asked Allah for ease with this, and I asked Him to just give me the strength to do this. And that was the first time I ever prayed Tahajjud. And I remember that prayer. There's certain du'as that you make in your life, and there's certain things that you yearn for that you just always remember how desperately you asked Allah for them. And that is one of them. I asked Him just for ease in this. And I feel like that dua is still benefiting me today, 12 years later, where I have found ease in this. He's always found a way to bring me back. He's always found a way to make this easy for me. He's always put me in situations around friends, in circles where it was easy, it was accepted. I had decided that I was going to wear the hijab. I had decided the next time I leave the house, I will put my hijab on. But I felt scared in a way. I felt like I had a secret that nobody, because I hadn't told anybody yet. And honestly, I didn't even have any hijabs, right? I didn't wear shalwar kameez. I had this one Eid shalwar kameez and it had a dupatta. It had this red dupatta. I will never forget that red dupatta. And I had one full sleeved summer shirt, which was also red, right? So that worked out for me. And I decided, okay, this is going to be my first day hijabi outfit. And I was just at home. It was summer vacations. I didn't have any plans. I didn't go anywhere. And so 4 days I was just at home waiting. Okay, if I leave the house, I'm going to put the hijab on, but I didn't. And I was sort of like gearing up and I was getting impatient. I was excited, but eventually June 22nd was when I left the house and I was going from one house to my nani's house, which was like 15 minutes away. And so I only wore the hijab for 15 minutes. And most of it was in the car when I was driving there. But I will never forget that car ride. I will never forget how I felt. That is how I started wearing the hijab. And of course, once I put it on, there were conversations. I had dropped hints to some family members, to my parents. Okay, this is something I'm gonna do, I wanna do. And there's always like a mix of reaction. There was a lot of support, especially from my parents. They were very proud, they were very happy. I think they were also a little scared. They thought, okay, she's only 14. Maybe she just isn't old enough to make this decision. Maybe she's gonna take it back. That's something I remember hearing is, okay, decide if you want to, but then you can't take it off. Honestly, taking it off wasn't even something I was thinking of at the time, but that is one of the reactions. Other ones were more, why don't you try becoming a better Muslim with other things first? Why don't you try praying 5 times a day first? And I was at that point, I knew that's what I would say is, no, I am praying 5 times a day. This is something I want to do. Other times would be, you're too young. That is something I feel like anybody who starts, at least in their teenage, and their family doesn't wear the hijab will get, or the people around them don't wear the hijab will get, is you're too young for this. It makes you look older. You're so pretty without it. But honestly, all of this just didn't even get to me. Like when I tell you I prayed for ease and I got ease, when I tell you I prayed to stick to this for the rest of my life, Allah gave me exactly that. So none of it really affected me. I'm just telling you in general, like the sort of reactions I got. If the reactions are something that you're afraid of, if there's something that is like hindering you from taking that step, I'm telling you, the second you put it on and you tell yourself, this is for Allah and this is for me to strengthen my relationship with Him, the feedback or the reactions, they're not even going to get to you. Like, they will literally like bounce off. Once I started wearing it, I remember I went and I bought these 2 hijabs. I got this white, like stretchy jersey sort of material, and I got this blue cheetah print hijab. And I wore those on rotation for a while. I decided to like show up in the world again, and I decided to like reactivate my Facebook account, reconnect with my friends. I've always been a social media girly, by the way. Like this has just always been something I liked. So it's not like I went from nothing to just being isolated. I had a huge social circle. Like, it's not like I didn't have people around me. At that point, I just didn't want anybody around me. And so once I did decide to like reactivate and I posted that first picture in hijab, all of my friends were super supportive. My family was supportive. Everybody was like praising me. It was really nice. I didn't feel like I needed their validation at that point, but it just felt nice. And their validation didn't feel like it was coming from them, but it just felt like, oh, remember how you prayed for ease? Like this is ease. So the validation and like the praise and everybody being really proud of me, somehow as a 14-year-old, I didn't let that hinder my intention. I didn't let it end up being, oh, I'm doing this for that. It was still for Allah. I just keep referring back to how I felt when I was 14 and the mindset that I had. How I wish I could be more like her, Now at this point, it's just a part of me. It's just a part of who I am. I hope it always stays a part of who I am. And I just get better with it. And I love everything that comes with it. I love how it keeps me accountable, how it keeps me in check, how it forces me to be mindful of the places I'm going, the people I'm talking to, the things I'm doing. I know while listening to somebody else's story it can inspire you in some ways, but I do want to make a separate video just strictly talking about advice, talking about things that you can expect once you start wearing it. And so I'm going to do a part 2 of this video. that is going to be just focused on that. I'm going to put like a few pictures here if I can find them of when I started wearing the hijab initially. Just because I feel really nostalgic like talking about this. This has genuinely like been the easiest video to film because I just loved talking about this. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for asking me to make this video. I hope you have a wonderful day. Okay, bye.